Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, we've done a little garden prep outdoors, but we're going to start seeding indoors. And one of the things that a lot of people do or don't do is this. They don't provide the correct environment for seeding. Now, under lights is important. Because very often in the wintertime in Canada or anywhere, you don't get the day length or the intensity in the wintertime that gives you strong, thick, sturdy stemmed plants. But by going and running a little set of lights, and I usually use a cool white and a warm white, I find that the two different ranges of light spectrum does have a tendency to give you a little stronger plant. The next thing I consider is that I want a little fan put in there so that there is good air movement. Now, one thing also about the lights, 4 inches above the plant. That's why we're using cool lights. That 4 inches will give you the intensity of the light outdoors. The farther you go away from the top of the plant, the inverse square of the distance. Physics has been a long time since I was in high school. So remember that the intensity really drops with every inch. So as the plants grow, the light goes up. You don't need it longer or higher or lower. You need it like that. And when we say day length, we want 14 hours. So we have 14 hours of the best light at the right distances, the right intensity, and the fan that's blowing fresh air across. And that movement gives you a thicker, stronger stem and better plant. It also cuts down a lot on disease, and you don't want to overwater. The last thing you want is dampening off. So if dampening disease happens, you know that you've got a problem. And the problem is this, that unless you sterilize the soil mix and sterilize all your tools and your trays, then you know that you're going to actually have damping off disease right in the containers waiting for you for the next time you seed in them. So you may want to go and do a good soap and water wash with those particular plant seed trays that do get dampening off. It also is a good indicator that you should actually make sure that if you're using trays and tools, etc., from year to year, that you do want to clean and do a good soapy water clean after you're finished seeding and they go outside, then you know that's the time to do that cleaning up as well. Don't leave it, because all that soil just blows around, and even though you sweep it up, the dust is there, and so is the disease. So you've got that. So you go and you get a good sterilized seeding mix in a bag. Remember, they are peat-based, and therefore they'll be best used moist. Never use them dry. 1, it's extremely bad for you to breathe in. And 2, they're harder to wet. They resist moisture at the beginning. So you want to work with moist soil or soilless mix. And let's be honest, that's very, very key. Now, some seed gets buried. Some seed goes on the top of the soil. Some goes on top of the soil, but the tray is covered, and so that there's no light in there, so that it actually germinates in the dark. they're different. And the instructions are either in the catalogs or on the seed packages. So you must read them carefully and give the right environment. I used to, when I was doing a lot of seeding at home, I used to take my hand and every morning I would go across the plants. I make sure that my hands were clean, mind you, and I would just sort of give them a light sort of brush across the top and say good morning to them, simply to give them that extra abuse, if you want to call it that, but movement, so that it augments the movement from the fan. It's a little rougher, and you, as long as you don't do anything silly, will actually get much stronger stems. So you can try that as well if you don't have a fan. It should be done at least once a day. Now, you're going to go to the store and you're going to get your seed. And you're going to do it in January, but you're going to seed at different times. The general rule is 6 to 8 weeks before you go to set them out in the garden. So that's when you usually seed. But there are exceptions where plants take longer to develop to size before you get ready to put them outside. When you do get them outside, you're going to start hardening them off, which means they go out for a few minutes, back in, out of the wind, the sun, the rain, etc. And you will do this for maybe 5 days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. It depends on the plant material, and it also depends on the soil and temperatures and, of course, the time that you have left that you can go and actually do this. Some people will do it much earlier, put them in a cold frame, and you can do it much earlier, but a lot of people don't have cold frames anymore. So try that. So let's do and run down a few of the plants that you're going to use sowed indoors early. And February is considered early. So Ageratum is usually done and seeded between the 20th and the 28th. Begonias are done in all of February. Just get them going, because there's seed that is so small, so fine, that it's like dust, and you just have to breathe and it blows away. And it's very, very expensive. You may go down and do Chinese lantern if you're crazy enough to actually plant this in your garden. To my way of thinking, or at least around here, it is an invasive weed, which is hard to get rid of, but you can if you're persistent. You may try Coleus anytime from the end of January till about the 15th of March. Then you can do dahlias. Now, these are usually the smaller dahlias. They're done from seed, February 15th, all the way to the April the 15th. Dianthus, which is your carnations, around February 20th to about the 15th of March. Dusty Miller is an interesting one, February 1st all the way through. But trust me, you want a reasonably good-sized plant that you set out for this particular plant. I've always found, particularly if you're in heavier soil, so February 1st to April 1st, but it's better earlier in that period of time. In other words, around the first part of February. Gazanias, not a lot of people grow them, but February 1st. Geranium seed is early February. Gerbera is early February. Impatiens, if you're seeding impatiens, it's about the middle of February till about the 10th of March. This depends a lot on the varieties and the sizes, but my recommendation is you don't want leggy plants, And so don't overwater your impatiens, and give them good light indoors under lights. And you have to go and check. Everyone's a little different with the different varieties, okay? A lot of the varieties that you buy have been given growth retardants, and therefore you have to be careful because you're not going to do that. And you can get very tall plants, and you can make your plants even taller by watering them a lot more. And of course, the lobelias, they go late February. Same thing with Nurembergia. They go late February. Petunias are mid-February on until the 1st of March. Depending on the varieties of petunias, there's so many different kinds anymore. Please, with all the breeding's gone on with petunias, use the catalog and the recommendations in there. I wouldn't even use the seed package. I would actually go to the distributor's catalog for that particular one. I think that's so important. Salvia can be done late February up until about the 15th of March. So you've got a good period of time there. Salvia is a good plant to put out in the garden because it's tough. And it gives you blooms, particularly the blue ones, but there are others, the reds and the pinks and the bicolors, etc. So that's good. Try those. Snapdragons, you gotta have snapdragons if you got kids, just to show them how the dragon, okay? And how to make the dragon talk. But they also, once they're established in your garden, may seed themselves. And I have never planted snapdragons in my yard, but I have snapdragons every year. And every year I get colors I don't like. I pull them out before they go to seed. And for some reason or other, I still get colors I don't like. Verbinia can be done around towards the end of February. Middle of February for your Madagascar periwinkle, if you're going to do that one as well. So there you go. There's some of the plants that you can do early. Get them ready, get them going, get them into trays. And, of course, you want them under lights. Getting 14 hours of light a day. The light should be 4 inches from the top of the plant. Don't overwater. Probably not going to feed them right away. There should be enough fertilizer in a soilless mix already for you. If you find that you really need it towards the end, make sure that it's an extremely weak plant food that's designed to give you strong stems and flowers as opposed to vegetative growth. Okay? You're less likely to actually hurt the plant doing that as well. And of course, it's stockier. So that's always good. And blooms a little earlier too. All of that's good, and that's what you're looking for. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.